So again, as you can see on screen, this is now being recorded. So please click on Got It to confirm that you understand that it is being recorded. Otherwise, it will kick you from the meeting.
Thanks, Nico. Okay.
And if, sorry, Meg.
That's okay.
Yeah. And just a reminder too, guys. Sorry, Meg. But
okay.
Nico and I are remembering stuff.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Just remind everybody that make sure you stay muted. Chat has also been disabled for this presentation until we get to certain sections.
Amazing. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Nico. So welcome, everybody. Like I said, it's awesome to see so many familiar faces. Some that are familiar, some that aren't. So welcome, everybody, to tonight's webinar hosted by Community Living Ontario's council members on a very important topic of tokenism. So our presenters tonight have a presentation for you that will go over the definition of tokenism, and it will talk about its importance. And then we will provide some scenarios that is hoping to get the conversation started. And that's when we will re-enable the chat. We've turned off the chat just to keep the distractions low for Nico and Robert while they're doing the beginning of the presentation. Like Nico had said, this is being recorded. So if you do not want to be recorded, just turn your camera off. And we just ask that everybody, because it is in Zoom, stay muted just to keep background noise and distractions down for Nico and Robert. So welcome, everybody, and let's get started. I'll turn it over to our presenters this evening, Nico and Robert, if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
So hi, everybody. I'm Nico Pupella. I'm the council president. I reside in a little town that is continually growing in Uxbridge, and I sit on a variety of different committees and groups. And I'm also the past president of our local Durham North chapter in Port Perry, Uxbridge. So glad to have you guys join us tonight. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Robert.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert. I am also a member of the Community Living Ontario Council, and I am a member of Community Living Respite Services Northumberland. I also sit on a few boards myself. I've got one board that I sit on for a couple of choruses I sing with. So I live in Port Hope, just probably about an hour from Toronto, and a little bit farther for where everybody else is located. So looking forward to this evening and enjoy.
Thanks, Robert. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Meg Mitchell, and I am the council engagement coordinator. So I work with the council here at Community Living Ontario. So back to you, Robert.
Thank you, Megan. It is extremely important for us as people who have a disability to be able to contribute to our communities just like everyone else. We each have something to offer. We don't want to be kept away from opportunities. We want to be given the opportunity to show what we are capable of. We want to be treated fairly and as equals.
So what is tokenism? Tokenism is the act of doing something that includes people who belong to a minority group, such as people who have a disability, only to give the impression that they're being treated equally and fairly. To continue the definition of it, it's when groups or businesses bring in people that are often excluded from society, not because of their abilities, but just so it looks good for that group or business. In continuation, tokenism is not to be included for the right reasons, but as a token or representation. It also is including someone as assigned to the community that they care when really they don't.
We need to build bridges within our community so that people who have a disability can be given full opportunity to succeed, not as a token, but as an equal.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert and Nico. Really important words. We thought about the definition of tokenism how we can expand it, how we can talk about the importance specifically for people who have a disability. And we really want to take the chance to just open up the conversation and let this webinar kind of be a way for discussions to start and to just talk about tokenism. So we came up with some scenarios. I'm going to go ahead and just take a minute to turn the chat back on. There we go. So we've come up with some scenarios for tonight. And I think, Nico, you are going to present the first scenario. Oh,
Yep,
we can start some discussion.
Thanks, Meg. And before we start, I just want to remind everybody that while we're having this discussion on tokenism, let's please be respectful of each other's opinions and thoughts, as I know that not everybody is going to be having the same opinion about it. But as long as we're respectful, that's all that we ask. So our first scenario that we're going to discuss is an advertising flyer from a local grocery store includes pictures of store employees. One picture shows a group of 10 staff, including one person who uses a wheelchair. However, no one who works in the store uses a wheelchair. Is this tokenism? And why do you think this picture was included in the flyer? So if people want to ask a question or chime in, you can raise your hand. Our lovely moderators will be helping with this, which will be Payal and Megan.
Yeah, does anybody have anything to start the conversation based on the scenario and what Nico has just asked? Anybody at all? Is this tokenism? I see Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can just
Go ahead, Elizabeth. You can unmute.
I don't think it's tokenism. I think actually it's discriminating.
Can you elaborate any more on that? How come?
According to this scenario, they don't have anyone in the store that's actually working in a wheelchair, but they're advertising that they do. So they're not really going to be hiring anybody that works in a wheelchair. It's just a facade, in my opinion, to give the impression to maybe the higher ups that there are people there in a wheelchair. So maybe this is a directive from their managers or from the person who's responsible for hiring. That's my intake on it. I don't think they're going to ever hire anybody in a wheelchair.
Okay, excellent start to the conversation. I see a hand up from Janice. Am I saying it right, Janice?
Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually put it up by mistake, but
oh, sorry.
That's okay. I can tell you what I'm thinking. Just in terms of being a devil's advocate, this isn't necessarily the case, but is it possible that they're open to hiring people who do use wheelchairs and they're saying that, we are fully accessible and, we invite you to apply?
Yeah. Just something else to add. In this example, is it tokenism if no one like Nico was saying, uses a wheelchair? Also, if the store is not accessible as well, like does it not have automatic doors? Are the aisles wide enough? So there's a lot of things to consider. Do they have ramps outside? So I don't know if that can contribute to the conversation. If anyone else has anything to add, don't be shy. And if I don't see your hand, Sarah, there you go. Sarah Cassidy, go ahead.
I wonder if other people in the photo are actual employees. That would be interesting if they had all employees and then a paid model, or if it's a stock photo. I do think it's tokenism, but I think that that's an interesting angle to it as well. And
Sarah, why do you think it's tokenism?
I think it's tokenism because it's just for the optics, that the staff looks a certain way.
Anybody else? Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, hi there. I was just thinking about it and wondering if, it's really maybe a bit wrong to jump to a conclusion about what's going on, and maybe the best way is to go talk to them and find out, what their policies are and practices and what they really meant in their advertisement, and might also be an opportunity to educate.
Couldn't
point.
agree more.
Mhm.
Because if you don't ask the right questions, then how are you going to know? Because just by judging it based on what you're seeing doesn't really give you the answer you're looking for. It's always good to go directly to the source of the store and just ask the questions. Elizabeth, I see your finger up.
Yeah, I do feel that is a very good option. I also think that for me personally, I would probably walk around the store and see if I could match up any pictures of the employees that I see that's on the photo. And if I don't see the employees or anybody that's looking as though they belong in that photo, I will question and ask them where the employee is.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Awesome.
Did you have anything else, Nancy? Because your hand is still up.
No, I don't know how to take it down. I'm
So,
sorry.
so I guess we should have at the beginning also mentioned about the Zoom etiquette, is that in your reactions button, if you're using a tablet or computer, there's a reactions button where you can actually lower your hand. Our host can also do it for you too if you can't.
I see if I can help you, Nancy. There you go.
There we go.
I got you, Nancy. Anybody else? Robert, do you have any thoughts to what anybody is saying, or if this is tokenism in your opinion?
Well, I don't even know how to put it, even though I do work in a grocery store.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay if you don't.
I don't have a thing to add to this because I'm drawing a blank
okay.
on this one.
No worries. I see some
Carol?
hands. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I understand that it's a local grocery store, but we have several local grocery stores where I live, and they're part of a larger chain. So are they pictures and advertising that was created specifically for that individual store, or by the chain? And if it's the chain, I think that might tie into somebody mentioned earlier about policies and what kind of an environment they've created within their company, that the expectation is that all the stores would follow through with.
And that was Nancy that brought that up, I believe. And again, because you don't know whether it's a specific store or whether it's in general for
Right.
their whole chain. So
yeah, because if it's a chain store, then I mean that could be par for the course. And again, it ties into what other people have said, that they're they do consider themselves an inclusive hiring company. Globally, it just might mean that store specifically doesn't have somebody in a wheelchair. But again, looking at the accessibility of the store for customers too, is if it's set up that way, then that picture can be representative of it. But it's asking those important questions, like Nico pointed out, to then it clearly defines, is this tokenism or is this just an appropriate advertisement?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thanks, Carol. There's some
Linda.
comments in the chat too, Nico.
Yeah.
We'll read maybe after Linda.
Linda, go ahead, and I'll go to the chat and just read up some of the comments that have been said.
Thanks, Nico.
Thanks, appreciate that. Well, I'm feeling a little more negative towards this because the situation says they are store employees. So they put somebody in a wheelchair to make it look like they have someone working there that is in a wheelchair. What's the difference between painting someone's face black and pretending you have a black person there? I think it's false advertising and tokenism as well. And I don't think it's appropriate at all.
So I'm gonna throw this out there, is that anyone that's watched the segment, What Would You Do? And I don't remember the guy who does it, but he uses different scenarios where you basically be like what this is similarly describing as well, is that you have a group of employees in a photo, one's in a wheelchair, but then no one in the store uses a wheelchair. So then it's just basically like getting people's attention on the negatives and positives. It's like you want to make sure that it's an inclusive environment for the employees, but at the same token, sorry, wrong word, bad pun. But again, like our scenario says that no one who works in the store is using a wheelchair. So it's getting the people's attention to ask the questions like, is this for the whole store? Is it the chain wide? Because when you've got actors that are portraying that, you're basically trying to figure out what would you do in that case. Sylvia has a hand up. And actually, I'm going to go to the chat and I'm going to come back to you in about a minute, Sylvia, if that's all right. So let me just skim through the chat here.
You got it, Nico, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Bring my screen down here. So April says, I don't think so. In the future, they may have an employee who uses a wheelchair. I think it's representation. Megan responded saying yes, because it's misrepresenting, as there's no one with a wheelchair. And also you should not advertise it like that. If they're willing to hire someone with a disability, say we hire anyone. Also is supposed to indicate the employees, as they have none in a wheelchair. It seems they only mean to show that they are inclusive, which is also a possibility, because again, like that phrase, never judge a book by its cover.
Mm-hmm. And we've got one, Nancy wrote saying to Nico, myself, and Megan, very helpful, thanks. One is, yes, the flyer could be something like Loblaws or Sobeys or your little mom and pop shops that have stores. Another one, advertising can't expect to exactly represent their current employees. I think they're trying to show a diverse group of people.
We won't read all of them, but just to skim through. So James writes saying, I try not to jump to conclusions. I don't know that there's enough information in this scenario to form a solid conclusion. It says 10 staff. It doesn't say 10 of their staff. Is it possible that no one in a wheelchair has applied? Are they just showing that they are promoting inclusion? Good point, honestly, because again, that's judging it by what you're seeing, not what you don't know.
Yeah, do we want to go to Sylvia now?
Yeah, Sylvia.
Some hands.
Hey, thank you. I guess for me, I have a question that I would be interested in hearing other people's perspective on is, let's just say that that person actually who uses the wheelchair does work at that store. To me, I wonder, what is the difference about the company, the grocery store, showing that they're, they employ with diversity, or could that in itself, even if the person did work there, still be a token? I'm interested in the perspective on that.
Excellent question. I see a couple of hands up. Oh, a bunch of hands.
I'm not sure exactly how to respond to that right away, but
I'm the same, Nico.
That's okay. I see a bunch of hands up.
Let's go to
Linda.
Linda, Tanya, then back to Janice. Linda.
I'm still kind of negative on this one. I think if they're doing something false like that, then who would want to be involved with the grocery store? What else are they doing that's not straight up? There are better ways of advertising that type of thing than faking it, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we all see like advertisements that are not completely true with what they're supposed to get the message out. And believe me, like I took a course in college which was dealing with the media and I can't remember, pop culture and the media. So again, we looked at advertising as a huge thing where it's like some things are not as advertised as they say they are. And I'm not going to go into the political aspect because that could go in so many different ways. We got Tanya.
Yeah, did Tanya, sure. Go ahead, Tanya.
Hi. I
Hi.
think for me, I would want to know if the position that the person has there is a valid position, if they're doing a real job and getting real pay for the work that they're doing. In which case, if they are, then I would say it's not tokenism.
Mhm.
But if they're not being paid equal pay alongside their coworkers for the work that they're doing, then I would say it is tokenism.
Excellent point.
I'm going to jump to the chat for a quick minute because Selena wrote a comment saying, I wonder if by having the photo demonstrates that they are trying to be representative. If someone who uses a wheelchair enters the store and sees the photo, would they be more inclined to apply for a job? So
it's a good point.
Yeah, because I mean, again, like someone in a wheelchair might come in and look at that like, is like if they get a feel for the environment and see whether it's an inclusive environment they might want to apply to work for, then they might go for it. But then, as we have said before, advertisements could also be false, and then that could give them a false hope too. So,
Yeah. Do we want to go to Janice?
We'll go to Janice. Meg, Tanya, your hand is still up, just so you know. Janice.
Hi there. So my comment now is so far removed from the original comment that I hope I can remember it properly, but it does kind of piggyback off of what Tanya was just saying about equal pay for equal work, although I was thinking more in terms of equal value placed on the skills and abilities of the employees. So if a token would be just being hired so they could be in the picture and show that we value diversity, whereas a person actually being valued for themselves. So I guess it would depend on what the intent of the person doing the advertising was. And then, like we said early on, going back to them and asking them that. Maybe. That's it.
No, great point.
Exactly.
Debbie, do you want to add something? I see your hand.
Hi.
Hi, Debbie.
So I think that there's definitely a possibility that they're trying to show representation and that they could be an accessible employee and they want inclusivity. But I think realistically, in my experience and in my opinion, the world has not caught up to people with disabilities yet, whether it be developmental, physical, whatnot. A lot of places might say that they're inclusive, but they don't take into consideration somebody with a wheelchair and somebody's needs, physical needs for the job. Like, do they provide a chair if somebody can only stand for so long? All those kinds of things. I really don't think, I mean, even with the snowy weather, they plow the sidewalks, but they don't plow the end of the sidewalk. So anybody with a walker or a wheelchair, they can't use the sidewalk safely still, right? So I think, you know, to tie this into like with racism and everything, it's way more in everybody's face right now. So I think there's a lot of tokenism going on. And I don't think that it's necessarily negative on companies' parts, but I don't think people really understand what it means to be truly inclusive or truly, you know, whether that's with ageism, racism, disabilities, whatever it may be. So I would tend to say that this is probably tokenism, although the intent might be to show that, hey, we're inclusive and we want to do this. Are they really set up for it? I don't know.
Right.
Exactly.
Is this a good time to switch to the next scenario?
I would say yes.
Keep the conversation going, but in a different scenario. What do you think?
All right, Robert.
All right. So I do apologize for the glitching, guys. My computer is running a lot at the moment, so I do apologize for the glitches. Samantha is a person with developmental disability. She is proud of her sister who is in the armed forces. She helps at functions in her local veterans hall and sells poppies every November. She is asked to have the special role of laying the wreath at the War Memorial at her town's Remembrance Day ceremony. Is Samantha a valued member of the armed forces? Have the armed forces previously recognized Samantha's contributions? How will she be introduced at the memorial? Will she be paid for her role? Does the Army enlist people with disabilities or hire people with disabilities for other roles, admin, etc.? Is this tokenism?
Thanks, Robert. What do you guys think about this one? Everybody's wheels are turning right now.
I always got to remember to have my thing unmuted when I go to speak. Until you have a question, please make sure you are muted just to avoid any background noise. If you have a question, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. Carol.
Hi. It sounds to me like Samantha is very proud of her sister, and it sounds like she's an active member in the armed forces community where she lives. I know that, I believe that asking to lay down a wreath isn't a paid position for anybody. It's an honor to be asked, and my understanding is it's also a privilege to be able to do that. And typically, it's people who have some kind of a connection, whether it's themselves who are veterans or family members of veterans who are asked to do this. It's kind of a prestigious thing. So I don't know if it's necessarily tokenism as just a way of gratitude towards Samantha for what she's already doing in the community as well.
Good start.
Hey, Debbie.
I was just going to say this one, there's mixed feelings about this one. My original feeling is that this is not tokenism. They recognize Samantha and she is a part of their group. Now, would they hire someone with a developmental disability? I don't think so. But I think that they've kind of taken her into their group and their family, and they recognize her worth and her value. And they're being inclusive with that instead of tokenism, in my opinion.
Great.
All right, Linda.
There we go. I'll get the hang of this yet. I definitely think it's not tokenism. It's very touching, and looks like she has a nice role in the community and everything. And also they asked her to have that. It's not like they went out and hired somebody. To refer back in a wheelchair to do this. It was meaningful, and probably most of the people realize that because she's well known. Interesting.
It is a good one.
Debbie, your hand is still up, and Nancy, over to you.
I can help you, Nancy.
Well, you can't directly unmute her, but you can.
I know, I can ask her. There you go. Does that help you to unmute?
There
you go. You got it.
All right. Sorry about that. I guess I was going to say that this may well be tokenism, but through whose eyes? And what does Samantha think of the opportunity? And I think that is an important question. And I guess the other thing is sometimes there are lots of examples of tokenism, but it can be an opportunity. It can be turned into an opportunity to really do something more. And maybe that's, if she's already involved and has the positive relationship, maybe there is, you know, some sort of an opening for the armed forces to, you know, or the Veterans Hall to be asked if there is more that Samantha could do.
Good points. Carol Patterson and then Heather.
I think that it matters who's doing the asking. At Remembrance Day ceremonies, there are wreaths laid and sponsored by many different organizations in any community. And if this person, if Samantha was being asked by the construction company who didn't know her and wasn't really connected with her in any way, but they knew that she was somebody with an involvement somehow, but they just didn't know her. I think that might be tokenism. But when her community of people that she knows well, who know her well, and have her interests in mind, then I think that's less likely to be tokenism.
So you kind of weigh both sides of that equation. Heather Moran and Carol, your hand is still up. Heather.
I tend to think it's inclusion because she's welcomed into a group. She's honored by a position. And I think that that gives us all a sense of value to what she is actually doing. So I lean towards the fact that she's being included into something that's a very important role in our community.
So I'm going to jump over to the chat, and a lot of people are repeating the same message about the fact that it is inclusive because she's being included in with what she's doing. They recognize her for the volunteering that she's doing. I'm going to read one that was actually given to us by one of our colleagues when we were kind of discussing this beforehand. And this was from Allison. Her thoughts on it was that in this scenario, Samantha can go either way. Have they previously recognized her contributions? How is she introduced at the memorial? Will she be paid for a role? And what will happen to her role following the memorial? Who or what kind of person normally gets that honor? Does the Army enlist people with intellectual disabilities or hire people with intellectual disabilities for other roles, admin, etc.? Is Samantha treated with respect and kindness when she's volunteering? So some questions and food for thought on that. Sylvia?
Yeah, hi. I guess my question would be, because it doesn't say it here specifically, it says she helps at functions in her local Veterans Hall. What I'd be interested in knowing is the roles that she's taking on in the Veterans Hall. Are they paid roles that other people are doing that she's doing alongside? Because that would impact my feeling on whether this is tokenism or not. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Totally.
Elizabeth, I don't see your physical or your
I see your physical
up.
hand, yeah.
Okay. As long as somebody in here can see the physical hand going up.
Oh, you just have to unmute there.
Okay.
There you go.
I've been really listening to everyone, and I feel there may be a little bit of tokenism in there based on the fact it's a Memorial Day, Remembrance Day for the war veterans. Obviously, this is probably going to be in the local newspapers. So for me, in some part of the way, they're also probably advertising Samantha to the community as to what the veterans are, what the armed forces is doing, even though they don't hire her, even though, and she's just, I mean, me as the outsider looking at the newspaper that comes out and see this, I'm gonna say, oh wow, that's really nice. And maybe they might, as a person or as an employer, see something like this, it might spark an interest to maybe look for or to start thinking about having people with disabilities into my organization. I just feel it might be a stepping stone for the community, the business community out there in that particular area who gets the newspapers, you know, to perhaps think that this is something good and maybe try to follow suit. That's my take.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Are there any more hands? Oh,
I didn't
Heather?
see any. Oh,
Heather. You
Heather.
I'm just wondering why we think that a person that we state that has a disability would be noticeable. What is it within us that's saying, because this person could be deaf, this person could have a disability of dyslexia, and why is it that we presume a person that has a disability actually is outwardly displaying it? So that's something that I sometimes question within myself. You know, what is that within me that just presumes that a person looks the part?
That's a great point. Anyone else want to weigh in on the situation with Samantha?
Shirley has her hand up, and then
Yep.
Debbie.
Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I was late.
That's okay.
So, thank you. I have to agree with the nice lady that spoke about not being able to see a disability. So for example, my son has an intellectual disability and you cannot see it. And in our community, before COVID, he was involved with the local Air Force, and you know, they would pick him out of a crowd because they knew how well he spoke at Christmas time, and he read a story to the young people. He just, you know, helps with setting up chairs just because he just does it. And, you know, everybody is very welcoming and whatnot there. So unless you really have a long conversation with my son, you wouldn't know that he had a disability. So I can agree with, you know, what is her disability? Is it visual? Or is it just, I shouldn't say just, sorry. I'm a little nervous.
No worries,
don't
take
worry.
your time.
Don't be nervous.
I don't know why I'm nervous. I mean, I went back to school to be an EA, so I'm trying to get as much information and help others in our community, because this is actually an important topic, I feel, because I think that there isn't enough out there for those with a disability. And I do feel sometimes they are put out there as tokens. So that's my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you. Debbie.
I think what Heather was saying about why are we assuming that somebody with a disability is a visual thing, I think that's a great point. I've worked with people with disabilities for over 30 years. And although I know realistically that not everyone has a visible different look and you can't always see disabilities, when we get these types of situations, we forget that. This is why this meeting and these discussions are so important, because it reminds all of us that, you know, we make those same mistakes sometimes, even though we maybe have disabilities or work with people with disabilities, right? So I think that was a great point. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to have this meeting tonight.
Oh,
Well, we
great.
appreciate your feedback too.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Carol, then Robert.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a question, just kind of put it out there. Tokenism, as much as we have a very clear definition of what it is, I think individual perspective on what a situation, whether it's tokenism or not tokenism, really has a weight here in the decision. You know, I may view something as tokenism, but the person who's I think is being used for tokenism, they might not. Like their perspective on it might be, I'm okay with this because it was asked in a respectful way, because it means something near and dear to them, or they're just proud to see their picture. Doesn't necessarily have to be them. I'm thinking of this situation and the first situation. I'm just, obviously education's important, and I think that we need to have these important conversations so that we are educating ourselves and the people around us. But I also think that how the individual who is being representative as potential tokenism, their feelings matter in this.
Excellent points, Carol. Robert, and then Wayne, I did see your hand.
Yeah, Dad, if you've got a question, yeah, you can go after me, Dad. That's not an issue.
Right.
No,
I just realized the last name.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my dad just made it on. So, so no, I wanted to add to what one person was saying earlier about her own son that has an intellectual disability. You are not alone there. I have an intellectual disability, but you can't see it. I agree with you. But for me, I do what I do. It's hard for me, but I get by. People don't look at me with a disability. They treat me the way I want to be treated, and I'm involved. So I know how you're feeling with your son and that he's treated respectfully. That is amazing that he does what he does of reading stories. I think that's phenomenal. He's an amazing person. Don't let that stop him. Hold his head high. He'll do great as he gets older.
Thank you.
And before I turn it over to Wayne, I'm going to be posting a link in the chat, and I've shared this with a lot of people before. It's a video that I was part of with my local group on advocacy, but also speaks about not judging someone just based on what they look like or how they act. So I'll post that in a minute. Wayne, go ahead, and I'm going to just read a comment from Jackie, and then I'll post the link in the chat.
I'm sorry
Wayne?
I'm late, Nico, but I just come from a board meeting of Community Living and Respite Services Northumberland, and I thought, well, I'm going to take part in this. Robert's very true of what he said, and I'm Robert's dad, by the way. What Robert said is very true. Robert is intellectually developmentally disabled. People don't see that. They all through school life, all through his adulthood, and he just turned 30 yesterday. Nobody sees that. We don't understand what people are, and people with intellectual or developmentally disabled can do just as much in this world and out in the community as people. Sometimes they're better than people that have got capabilities. I was in a business where we hired individuals through the EARN program that were developmentally disabled, and some of them turned out to be better workers than what I had with people that had the knowledge. So just coming in on this and just reading this here, it doesn't matter if you can do. You've got to stand up for yourself, make yourself proud, make yourself known in the community.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Wayne.
I'm going to quickly read the message from Jackie that she wrote saying, I appreciate this discussion so much and agree that this is a great discussion. At first, my thinking was, no, this is not tokenism, as the person was being invited to the event based on their connection to the community. But following this discussion, it is making me think differently. Is the role something others would be asked to do? Oh, and for those that don't know, Robert had his birthday yesterday or Monday?
That is correct. Yes, yesterday. Yes.
I can give you a little bit of a tidbit, Nico, if you would like. He's if you get down to it, Robert is only 7 3/4 years old. He was born on February 29th, 1992. So he's a leap year baby.
So cool.
Oh,
That's a very cool birthday.
Well, that is true. There is actually not just me. There's actually, I think, Dad, about 5 other people that
In our
also have
community,
this
yes.
in our
yes.
community that have the
Yes.
exact same as I do.
So cool.
So it is absolutely cool to have that every 4 years. But as I've said, I've come this far. I've made it this far, and Dad and I, it was rough when I was born, but hey, look at me now. I can do what I can do.
We're glad you're here, Robert. Elizabeth, did you want to add to the conversation too? And then I think we'll move on to our last scenario, just looking at the time.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone for their input. It's been really interesting. Happy birthday, Robert, by the way. I'm very proud of you. I just wanted to share a little story. A while back, I was in the grocery store with my son. He was much younger. And physically, he does not display any signs of disabilities. But mentally, sometimes he has this, excited and he'd be moving around and he's overactive. And I was at the checkout and there was and he was right behind me, but I noticed he was just sort of fidgety. And there was somebody at the end of the checkout and it was a female and she was just looking back at him. And I got so offended by seeing this. I just felt so bad. And I was really nervous taking my son out. And for the one who's the female who's taking the course, the school course, I just wanted to say to you, that person was looking, and then I just looked at her while the cashier was telling me the price of the stuff. And I looked at her and I says, "Can I help you with something?" And then she realized that I seemed to be upset. And she said to me, "Oh, no, please, 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 forgive me. I'm just a teacher and I have children. I teach children with special needs. And I was just looking at your son." And she says, "I don't mean to be offensive, and I just felt so bad that I came on to her like that, but she also made me feel really good in the aspect that not everyone that looks at you means anything bad. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. Oh, and before I forget, somebody did ask this in the chat. Where was it? Carol asked if we will have access to the recording afterwards. It is being recorded, so once it is finalized, we'll make sure that it's available. I believe it'll most likely be put on the CLO's website with the resources page, I believe.
You got it.
Yeah. So once it's ready, we'll make sure that there's a link for it available for you guys to be able to see it.
Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add before we move on? Okay, so why don't we go to the third scenario?
All right, moving my screen here. So our last scenario is a group home is having a fundraising event to get money to purchase a new accessible van. The organizers bring 3 of the people who live in the group home to greet donors in the lobby as guests are led into the restaurant. The people living in the group home then return to their home and are not included in the dinner or other fundraising activities. Is this tokenism? And do the people offering their greetings have a valued role? So let's get the
see if we can have some hands up here. Heather, you're doing a laugh emoji. Do you want to explain why you did is that a crying emoji? Okay. I thought it was the laughing one.
Yeah, I can't see everybody. That's why I have to rely on Meg and Kyle to tell me what reactions people are giving.
No problem. That was a boo. Heather, can I pick on you to elaborate?
Oh, there's Elizabeth putting a crying face.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us why?
Just the fact that we wouldn't all be eating together. Well, that they
weren't included.
Oh, there's just no excuse for that. No. We all go together.
Is this tokenism?
Together, we're all one. Why would we even consider that? No. Yeah.
Is it tokenism then, in your opinion?
I might define it in another way.
Okay.
And I might not be able to say it on the camera.
Yeah, no, I think I got a pretty good idea of where you're going with that. Robert, then Elizabeth.
Yeah, I agree with what I'm seeing in the chat and with what Heather just said. They should be included. And not to be included, that hurts. And I really don't think, like, I really can't say if it is or isn't tokenism, because I think everybody should be treated the way they should be treated, as equal and respectfully, and not be left out of something of a fundraising activity. I feel that shouldn't be happening, that they should be included.
Exactly. And it's like with the link I shared earlier, with the advocacy thing. It's like, again, treat everybody equally. Don't don't be like judgmental, because I mean, just because you have a disability doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. We're all unique. We all bring our own special gifts to the table. Shirley, then Elizabeth.
I definitely believe that this is tokenism. I believe that everyone should be involved when it comes to a fundraiser of any sort. I work with children with disabilities. My son has a heart condition. With our fundraisers, we're very involved. We have an organization here in Windsor that I'm involved with. It's called the ICHA, and we have pasta fundraisers, and we have them. Everybody is involved, of all walks of life. It doesn't matter what your disabilities are, they're all included in the functions that we are a part of. So it very much breaks my heart to even read this in today's society. This would be so wrong in my eyes.
It's everyone is right, especially with what they've been saying in the chat, is that it is tokenism, because like, it's so rude and unacceptable behavior for them to be excluded. Anybody that to be excluded, honestly, because you're there to do something good for the community, and then turn around and say, "Oh, nope, sorry, you can't be part of it." It's like, really? Like, to me, that's like a huge slap in the face.
Nico, can you read some of the things in the chat
yeah.
as well?
Like, a lot of them are the same messages. It's like, very poor decision, like so rude, and exclusion. It's not being inclusive. I mean, and one person wrote, Megan wrote near the beginning of it, saying they should be included unless there are reasons why. But again, like, you're doing something good for the community. Why aren't you being included in something that's so positive? Like, why get turned away? Like, it's like wrong on so many levels. Especially if it's a fundraiser thing. Like turn around and put yourself in their position and be like, why am I going back home? Like, how is this right? How is this like fair?
And one other one, Kevin Rose wrote, they appear to more of a fundraising props since they weren't included in any part of the event.
Yeah. Like, it's disgusting. I encourage you, and I'll put the link again to the video, or if somebody else can go up and find it and repost it, please do. Like, that message is so important, along with what we're talking about. It's like, treat everybody equally and fairly, not as a token. I'm going to throw it to Elizabeth. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I felt very sad when I read that, because I recently had a stroke, and I've been thinking of perhaps I should start organizing or getting things into perspective for my son in case he has to go into a group home. And that part of it really made me feel sad. Because I don't think our children has feelings just as we do. And probably more so. They're more sensitive. They're more open to a lot of reactions from other people. And just seeing this is so hard. So hard to even think, will I be doing the right thing getting my son in a group home? I mean, this is just a scenario, but there are probably some places that are like that. And I think that's sad. That is definitely tokenism in the rawest fact.
Sorry, Elizabeth. Linda, thank you again for coming. We appreciated your feedback into this. I mean, it's huge, the amount of like feedback we're getting from this. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Elizabeth.
No, that's okay. I was done anyway. I just think it's definitely tokenism.
You mentioned that you had a stroke.
Yes, I did. I did just when the in the beginning of it was in July 2019, and I was to go and get therapy in February of 2020, and just at Variety Village, and just as it started, we got the lockdowns from COVID. So, and then we moved from the area, and you know, he's been without anything for the last 2.5 years, and it's really been hard on me and double hard on him. I felt like all his social skills that were developed just went crumbling right down. I mean, I can't keep up with him. So I just had to start thinking like, this is time now. I do have to think about the perspectives for him in case
I'm not a lot of people know this about me, is that my mom had a stroke when she was 7 months pregnant with me, and she died on the operating table. I was born under emergency C-section, and then they revived her. So I'm lucky to be alive.
Wow.
Wow.
It's not something I share too often.
Yeah,
but
thanks for sharing. Both of you, thanks for sharing. Yeah. I think I see another hand from Debbie. Debbie, did you want to add anything?
I was just going to say what Elizabeth is talking about is such a common concern I hear from parents about, you know, some of their most difficult concerns with their children who have disabilities is the thought of putting them in a group home and will they get proper care? Just another reason why this discussion is so important. And it's just such a great opportunity, and there needs to be more education and whatnot. I can't imagine being a parent in that situation. I really can't. So I'm glad that you seem to be doing okay, Elizabeth, and I hope everything works out for you and your son.
I've put our contact info in the chat. It's going to be shared on screen, but I've created the link to our council webpage. It saves from being the longer version, but I shrunk it down to make it easy for people. But thank you to everybody that's provided feedback today. We are going to be doing more webinars and sessions. The chat's going to be saved, so there's a running history of what the comments are and what's been posted. You can reach out to myself. My email is on screen and in the chat. Again, with Robert and Megan. But
You're right,
we want to continue this discussion. If there's questions that people haven't been able to ask, they still want to reach out. The council website, actually, if you go to it, there's a button to connect with myself and Meg. It'll connect you directly to my email. I think it's so important that this discussion continues. I'm going to try and see if there's a way that I can put together an open forum thing that can be linked, so people that want to continue this discussion, that it can be, because it's so important.
Yeah, feel free to reach out, everyone, to Nico, myself, and Megan. I mean, we would love to continue this discussion, because this is we need to continue this. So like as Nico said, if you couldn't get a question or something answered, reach out to us. We will answer it. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to chat with you as well.
Yes, thank you everybody for participating tonight.
I want to say a huge shout out to our hosts, Megan, Payal, and Ronald, for helping put this on. We could not have done it without you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Amazing job.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let everybody know as well, we're going to be sending out a feedback form. So we'd love to hear from you using the feedback form. We will send that out tomorrow morning to your emails. Unless there's any other thoughts or comments, I think we are ready to end the meeting tonight. But again, thank you everybody for coming. What an awesome turnout, what awesome discussion and conversation. Like Nico and Robert were saying, so important. And I don't think this conversation will ever be done. But again, thank you everyone for sharing your stories and your comments.
Meg,
We
do
look
not
forward to
close-
seeing your faces at the next webinar.
Don't close the thing off. So
I will.
again, thank you again for everybody that was able to attend. Again, we will keep this conversation going. I'll connect with Robert and figure out a way of putting something that we can keep this conversation open and going. It's touched on so many things. Like, people don't understand that, like, you got to put yourself in the perspective of the individual and not always judge, because not everybody's going to be carrying the same ability as someone else. I'll close off with my message that I usually like to end with. It's that I call it the hashtag one thing. And some of you will know this from what I've spoken about before, is that you want to treat others the same way, reach out, help someone. You're not in this world alone. So let's stop acting like it.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Robert. And thank you to Pael and Ronald in the background as well. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Have a
Megan,
wonderful
can
evening.
you turn the chat off so I can save it?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, Stella.
And thank you to the council members that were able to come and
Yeah,
watch.